I like what I see. I want you for me. Can't take you back home, but it's not that type of thing. But I just might give in, call you up at a late time. On me, hate the games till they play right. Find love, lose it all in the same night.
Baby, why don't you hold me closer? Don't let me go. Drink of your ocean. It's what I need. Oh, na 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 na. You stay on my brain, on my mind. With you, the stars stay aligned. Where will our thoughts lead tonight? I just want you to hold me. I don't want you to let me go. Feel so good cause you know me. I'll make time, boy, just let me know.
Say no more, girl, just telling me back in the morning. Raising the temperature on me, I want you the way that you want me. No lying, I put that on me, yeah. Falling. Once a month is not enough. Body calling. Ain't nobody gotta say what you gon' do. Falling. Once a week is not enough. I can hear your body calling. Don't nobody understand what we gon' do.
Hold me closer. Don't let me go. Drink of your potion. It's what I need. Oh, na 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 na
Okay. Hi, Danielle.
Hi.
Welcome to the Antelope, girl. Your house looks beautiful back there.
Oh, thank you, girl. It's kind of a mess, but you're in the part of the house that looks decent, right?
Right. It looks really nice, but thank you so much. I was a little nervous, like, I don't know her. Like, I know everybody else on the panel, and like we're friends. And I'm like,
oh my God.
But she's a friend in my head, so I hope we just be friends now.
I'm gonna be like, we're like sister friends. It's okay. We're virtual friends, Like there's nothing like a friend that you meet on IG. It's like
right.
Like,
you actually came to my job and presented because I work at UWG.
Yeah.
So you presented for Refinery 29, and I was just like, I really love her. I'm following her.
Oh, I love that.
Yes, so that's how I actually found out about you. But I always knew about Unbothered, but that was how I found out about you. Actually,
that's awesome.
Yeah, so thank you so much. I'm so excited.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. You're welcome. So you can just tell us who you are, what you do. I'll let you do that because you probably do it better than me.
I am, so my name is Danielle Cadet. I am the managing editor at Refinery 29 Unbothered. And my technical title is VP of Content Strategy and Development at Refinery 29. And I basically oversee our 29 Unbothered, which is our platform and what I call a digital haven for Black millennial women. And it's really dedicated to creating a safe space where Black women can feel seen and celebrated, and that's Black femmes across the board of all backgrounds and sexualities and across the board, just making sure that we're really creating a safe space for Black women, particularly in the digital space. For so long, we've had incredible legacy brands like Essence and certainly had Ebony that really paved the way, but there was really a void when it came to serving the millennial audience. And so Unbothered launched in December 2017 on Instagram. And then I came on board in October 2018 to oversee the expansion. So to go beyond Instagram, to expand on site as far as articles on site, to do events. We launched a podcast. We've launched
Go Off Sis, right?
Yes,
I love Go Off Sis. I was like,
Season 2 is coming soon. Season 2.
Yes, it's amazing. I love it. I love that.
Thank you. Yeah, so I basically oversee the expansion of Unbothered. I mean, before I was at Refinery 29, I was a deputy editor at ESPN. I launched a site called The Undefeated, which explores the intersection of race, sports, and culture. And then before that, I was the editor of the Black Voices section at Huffington Post. So my whole career, I've spent pretty much the last decade of my career always dedicated to serving Black audiences. It's always been something that's just been very important to me. Just telling Black stories and celebrating Black culture is something that I've basically done my whole career. And coming to Unbothered and just being able to serve Black women specifically was just a dream. And I'm so happy to do it every day. And it just feels like such a privilege, to serve women that that look like me and that have similar experiences as I do.
Yeah. And that's amazing. I mean, and not all of us get to do that. That was one of the things when I was job searching this last time. I just newly started working at UWG, that I wanted to be at a position where this is for the culture. Like I knew for a fact, like I don't want no more jobs that ain't for the culture. Right. Like I just, what works for other people just didn't work for me. And that was my goal. So I can appreciate that a lot. So we'll get into, it's girl talk. We'll be real light. I'll get a little ratchet sometimes.
I'm here for it.
I don't know how to say this without, but I get a little ratchet.
I'm here for it. I'm Sophista Ratchet, so I'm all
okay. That's right. I'm gonna try not to curse. My mom sometimes be hopping in here, which me and you were name twins. My name is Latoya, but it's Latoya Danielle. My mother don't call me. Yeah, so she calls me Danny. She be in the comments with the hey.
Oh, I love it.
I'm gonna try not to curse, but I have a lot of stuff to talk to you about. I want to unpack some things. But before we get into that, Analog Girl, I don't know if you had a chance to listen or not, but Analog Girl is about anxiety. It's about an experience that I was going through about 2 years ago. And that's how this podcast came about. And then just the whole brand of Analog Girl. It's a small community. I always say that, but it's a tight niche community. Yeah, and, we interact with each other. I'm helping them. They're helping me. I'm grateful for that, and if it grows, it grows. And if it doesn't, it doesn't. But that's what it is. We're just here to be supportive to each other as we struggle with anxiety.
Yes.
So do you have any issues or struggle with anxiety at all? And if so, what type?
I do. So I do. I was diagnosed with generalized anxiety about 8 years ago in 2012. Wow.
Okay.
And I was going through just a particularly difficult time. I had just graduated from graduate school, and I had moved to New York, and I was working at HuffPost at the time, and it was a really fast-paced, high-pressure job. And I was also covering a lot of really difficult news. I mean, when I worked at HuffPost, I covered the Trayvon Martin investigation and the subsequent George Zimmerman trial. And at that time,
anxiety in itself.
Exactly. And so, it's really what I refer to as sort of the grassroots of the Black Lives Matter movement. And there was so much, I mean, in digital news, particularly at the Huffington Post, in breaking news, you are constantly on, you're not really sleeping, you're constantly exposing yourself to really traumatic images. I was constantly watching videos of Black people being killed and brutalized, and I was also just going through my own personal difficulties at the time. And, I struggled quite a bit. And I finally started seeing a therapist. And I've been seeing a therapist since then. And therapy has really been, it's truly saved me. It's really been the thing that has completely changed my life. And since I started going to therapy 8 years ago, it's always been something that I've prioritized, and I've moved around quite a bit. I've lived in Chicago, I've lived in New York, I've lived in Atlanta, LA, and now I'm in DC now. So I've been all over the place. But every move, I've always made sure that I found a therapist in that city, because I know I feel myself when I haven't been to therapy. I can feel myself getting very anxious. I can feel myself struggling. In 2012, I specifically struggled with anxiety and depression. Since then, my depression was circumstantial, but my anxiety certainly has continued. And it is something that I think is so important for us to talk about as a community. I think particularly as Black women, we so often, we tough things out and we power through, and we just don't necessarily give ourselves the space to take care of ourselves. We're so used to taking care of everybody else and doing things for other people. And we are very proud, and we don't necessarily come out and say that we're struggling.
Right.
So I have always felt like, even in the smallest exercise of self-care, and I will be honest, I'm not good at taking care of myself very often, but the
Most
one
of us who have anxiety aren't.
right?
We're just
the
not
one thing I refuse to go without is therapy. I've been seeing, it's so funny. I've literally been seeing my current therapist, longer than I've been seeing my husband. I literally said to her the other day, I was like, I've been seeing you longer than I've been seeing him. So my current therapist, shout out to Satira Streeter in Southeast DC. She's incredible. Now we're doing virtual sessions because obviously in this time we're not able to do in-person sessions, but therapy is the one thing that there's just no way. It's just a non-negotiable. There's never a point where I'm like, even with travel, I traveled a lot for work, and there would be times where I would go weeks without going to therapy, and I had to stop and realize you're not doing okay. And so much of that is because you haven't had a chance to just sit and talk things through. And my therapist, challenges me to journal very often. So that's really how I deal with my anxiety, and whether that's exercising and also acknowledging my triggers and knowing, what things set me off and what things put me in a difficult place mentally. And it's taken time. It's taken time for me to learn those things. And as I grow and as I change and as I face new challenges, having somebody in my life that is a professional who can help me identify those things and help me work through those things. So it is a non-negotiable. Therapy is always, whether that's making sure there's money in my FSA, even budgeting for it is really important for me. And I know, that's a luxury that not everybody has. And I'm so grateful for that privilege. But it's so important to me that I make sure that I budget it out, and I budget out the time, I budget out the money, because I just know that without that, I'm just not my best self.
Yeah, I would agree. And I can relate to when there's times that I've I wouldn't say cheated on my therapist, but I was just like, I don't feel like giving her this money this week. So I'm not, and then I feel the benefits of that. And I'm like, I need to go ahead on and just sign up for my next subscription with her, because it's I need this. This is non-negotiable. This is what I really, really need.
Yeah.
So in doing all that, and you are the VP, so how do you manage teams? You got how many people are under you?
Yeah, so I have a team of 5 people on Unbothered specifically, and then I work really closely with a bunch of other teams, with our sales team and with our events team. So it's stressful and it's crazy. I think one of the most important things about being a manager is I always try to be that kind of manager that I appreciate. I think transparency is really important. I think honesty is really important. Even moments when I try to be really real with my team, and even, especially in the midst of all of this. And I will say listen, today's a hard day for me, and I think being able to be honest about that and showing my team, I'm going to be straight up with you. I'm going to.
So you don't feel any kind of way as a leader saying that to the people who are looking up to you, I'm not okay today.
Yeah. And I think it's important to let people know that you can be accomplished and you can still, you can do all of these things professionally, but you cannot be okay some days, you know what I mean? And so, even right now with my team, we drop an emoji in the morning that's okay, how are you feeling? And it's okay to be honest. You know what I mean? I do think that it's really important to just lead by example, and to show my team, how I show up and how honest I am with them, and the way and using my leadership style to develop trust. I think it's really important, particularly as a Black woman who has a seat at the table. I think we've all got to acknowledge that, like, that's a responsibility. And I think, I'm very cognizant of the fact that I have a responsibility, that, like, when I show up, and when a lot of these times I'm the only Black woman in these meetings, or, people are looking at you like as the representative for the whole community,
Right.
And that's a mix of showing up and being my best self, but also creating room at the table for other Black women who are out here, kicking butt as well.
Yeah, true indeed. Well, speaking of creating room for people at the table, somebody just hopped in the comments.
I see. I see folks are asking, we're hiring.
Well, is Refinery 29 hiring or not?
Yeah. So, obviously everybody it's tough right now in the midst of the pandemic, and budgets are being stretched, and everybody's kind of trying to figure it out. And media in and of itself it's a tough industry. So we do not have specific positions on the team available right now, but we do take freelance submissions. So please reach out with some freelance pitches. We are happy to take a look at freelance pitches. We have a small team, so we're always looking for voices and for great perspectives. So we don't have full-time positions available right now, but we certainly will take freelance pitches for sure.
Okay, and that's freelance writing or freelance content creators?
Freelance writing, like for the site, is a much easier process. Freelance content creators, depending on what it is, we could try to figure it out. But definitely writers, we will take as many pitches as we can, for sure.
Okay, cool. Well, I hope that answered the questions for the folks in the comments. So now we can get into what we're here to talk about, and that is Black mental health.
Yeah.
Mental health right now, especially in the Black community, is more important now than ever. Yeah. But it's like, to me, everybody, we've all been saying this. This is not our first pandemic.
Yeah.
Racism and inequality has been at the forefront of our lives for our parents, everybody. This has just been our issue. And I just wanted to talk to you about what were your thoughts behind, well, I should say, that's how I found out about you. Well, no, I found out about you from UWG, but then I saw the article.
Yeah.
Which was The Great Equalizer. Now, I didn't know that, people were out here saying that, because I went on a social fast.
Good for you.
Like when the whole pandemic thing was starting, I was like, I cannot do this.
Yeah, it's real. That's real.
So, but I did see your article, and it was really good, and it moved me. It triggered me, I will say. But it did move me. So what were your thoughts behind talking about this and bringing this to the forefront for us?
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that I'm always really conscious of is how we are approaching topics, and the narrative around topics. So often the narrative around topics is framed from a place of privilege. And that includes myself, even for me to say, like I said, me being able to budget for therapy, that's coming from a place of privilege. And I have to understand that not everybody can do that. And so when I was seeing conversations about COVID, I was just seeing everybody being like, we're in this together. We're going to get through this together. This is the great equalizer. We're all being affected by this. And it's like, and even in the beginning, I was like, right, exactly. Where I was like, but we're not. And I knew even before the data came out that Black and brown communities, Black communities were going to disproportionately be affected by this. There was no doubt in my mind, unfortunately, that we as a community were going to be hit really hard by this virus, for so many reasons, right? And this is the thing, is like, you cannot have a conversation you can't talk about the data that we saw a couple weeks ago. Several states and cities came out with extremely troubling data from, Michigan to Chicago to Louisiana. You're seeing like these incredibly high numbers of Black folks not only being infected with the disease at higher rates, but dying from the disease at higher rates. And you can't have that conversation without addressing inequities in society. You know, it's an old saying that when America catches a cold, Black America gets pneumonia, you know, and it's true. We sustain, as a result of racism, we as a community sustain things so much heavier and so much harder than the rest of the country does. And that's not only from a virus, that's going to be, you know, the recession that takes place. We're going to feel that harder. You know, the downturn in the economy, we're going to feel that harder. The first people to be furloughed or lose jobs are going to be people of color, are going to be Black and brown people. So that was really, I was very frustrated by the way we were framing this conversation around coronavirus, because what we do as Americans is we try to make ourselves feel better, right? Like we're very like, oh, we're very like, we sweep serious issues under the rug in order to pat ourselves on the back or, you know, make ourselves feel better. And that's frustrating to me. I think the real way for us to combat this virus, and not only the virus that is COVID, but the virus that is racism that has existed in our DNA for centuries. The only way for us to truly combat this is to have a real conversation and to acknowledge, listen, there are inequities that have existed in our society for centuries. Okay. We have literally created this country on the backs of Black people, and we've maintained a second class that is comprised of Black and brown people. Right. And so the only way that we're really going to be able to acknowledge that and to change that is by having a real conversation about the fact that this isn't the great equalizer, and we're not going to be affected by this in the same way. And, you know, people that we once, that we considered expendable are now essential. People that we weren't willing to give a living wage are now people that we can't live without. You know what I mean? And so it's not only a conversation of who's being infected and who's dying, but, you know, who are we relying on? You know, for so often we were like, you know, you need a college degree or you need this or that in order to make a living wage, in order to, you know, be able to live, to be able to have access to basic things in life, like healthcare or, you know, grocery stores, healthy food, you know what I mean? And now we're realizing that, like, that's never been the case. It's never, we haven't, as much as we like to tell ourselves that we live in an equal society, we don't. And this virus is making that very clear. So I just felt like it was really important. And I always think it's really important to talk to the white people that are very like, you know, the do-gooder white people who think like, oh, I'm with it. I'm woke. I know what's going on.
Like, do you think they really like be woke though? Like, I don't.
You know, I think there are, you know, I think there are some people that do really get it and really try to, you know, consume information. But I think that there are a lot of non-Black people who sort of live in the clouds and want and do that. I mean, the ignorance really is bliss. And you are able to kind of stay in this bubble if you don't expose yourself to information. And so I do think that there are a lot of white people who are like, oh, I'm doing everything I can and I'm helping and I'm doing this and blah, blah, blah. But you have to really understand what's at the root of this data, what's at the root of why we're seeing this. You know what I mean? Yeah. Our community, we're going to lose at higher rates. We're going to lose aunties and uncles and grandparents, and we're going to be affected by this. We're going to lose jobs. All those unemployment loopholes, that's going to disproportionately affect Black people. Yeah. So, you know, and I, again, from a place of privilege, I'm able to do my job from home, but that's not the case for everyone. And that's particularly not the case for people who look like me. Yeah. And so I'll be honest, that piece kind of came from a place of anger because I was just so annoyed and tired of the way that we oftentimes frame things. We just put things in a pretty little box and try to frame this nice little narrative around it to make ourselves feel better. And the reality is we've got to make ourselves uncomfortable before anything gets better. Yes, absolutely. I would agree with that. And then as far as that, so that leads into you know, this is like, we've never been through this before. I mean, obviously we've definitely been through racism and pushing the envelope and having our voices heard, but we've now had to pivot into how our stories are being told. Yeah. And what have you been doing with Refinery 29, Unbothered, to pivot and start to tell these stories and get the word out
about this and the importance of us keeping our mind and protecting our mind, protecting our neck during this time. Because if we don't, like when the recession hits and everything else starts to hit and all the snowballs really start to unfold in the year, we might not be able to withstand or withhold that.
Yeah, no, that's so real. You know, I think I love that it's called, this segment is called Protect Your Neck. It's so important. I think, like I was saying, especially being part of the media, I do think you have to find balance, right? I think you have to find a balance between exposing yourself to information, but also protecting yourself and being mindful of your triggers and being sure not to overexpose yourself to information that, you know, being inundated with too much negative information can affect our mental health.
Yeah.
And so, you know, one thing that we did, one of the first things we did at Unbothered was we just did a poll on our IG stories, just asking our community, like, what's your situation right now? Have you lost your job? Like, are you home? Are you working from home? What kind of content do you want to see? You know what I mean? And so one of the biggest things was and one of the things I think we do very well at Unbothered is we have conversations. We engage with our community rather than talking at our audience. We're having a conversation with her. And so that was one of the biggest things was I was like, let's talk to the audience and see what the audience needs.
Okay.
And balancing that with the fact, like, listen, there's really important information that our audience is going to need access to. Our audience is going to need to know about these numbers. Our audience is going to need to be aware about certain things that are incredibly important to us, right? So that's everything from what's the data to, you know, how is Black business? We did a story about how the Black hair business is being affected by COVID and what are hairstylists doing, you know, to deal with this pandemic, but also balancing that with humor, you know, posting some videos that are just going to be funny, right? Or posting memes that are just going to give you a little bit of levity, or doing videos. We have a series called Dear Black Love, where we do an in-depth conversation with different couples. And we recently posted our most recent episode. So seeing beautiful love between two women who are just speaking so openly and honestly about their relationship. So balancing all those things, right? Because in the midst of all of this, I am still Black, right? I am still living my everyday reality as a Black person. So making sure that we're giving resources, like here's how you can prepare for a recession, but also here's something you can laugh at, you know, because we're all, just as an existence, we're all just trying to get by, you know? And so one of the biggest things that we feel is really important, just from a content perspective on Unbothered, is making sure that we are giving a diverse bit of content, and that we're actually, you know, we're being really well-rounded about what we're offering our audience. So that can be anything from something that's going to make you laugh to something that's really going to make you think, you know, and just also staying ahead. One thing that I'm really thinking about a lot is we haven't seen these numbers yet, but we will inevitably see an education gap, you know. And so, you know, staying ahead of the fact that, listen, nobody knows our community better than us.
Right.
And, you know, I think there are times when, especially when it comes to data-driven stories, you get a lot of those stories where white people are figuring it out. So they're like, oh my God, we're seeing these numbers. But the reality is, as a Black community, we knew that was going to happen. You know? So making sure that we're coming at the narrative from a place of, we knew this was going to happen. We did something similar with, you know, Black maternal mortality and with the hospital policies, some of which in the early stages of the pandemic, a lot of hospitals were requiring women to labor alone. Well, for Black women, that's a matter of life and death.
Yeah, like what in the world?
Yeah. And so that is something that's like, you know, that's another story I wrote where it was like, it was already scary to be an expectant Black mother. And now the pandemic makes it even scarier, because it affects your ability to have a doula in the room. It affects your ability to have a partner in the room. And for Black women, advocacy in the delivery room can be a matter of life and death for her or for her child. Yeah. And so, you know, the pandemic is going to affect us in so many different ways. Our students, you know, depending on what resources they have, are potentially going to be behind. I see somebody in here saying she's a public schools teacher.
Yeah.
And that is real. I mean, there are some students that don't have access to adequate Wi-Fi, that don't have iPads, that
or don't even have a laptop. So I'm like, what are these kids doing that don't have laptops?
Or even getting a meal. There are some students who going to school meant they would at least have one meal a day. So we really have to think about, and you know, I think my job as a content creator and overseeing a brand is really thinking about, even before we start, before it becomes a national trend, before everybody's talking about it, thinking about how is my community being affected in a way that only we know, you know. And it's not so often, I think we talk about the Black community, we seem to have this microscopic view on like, look at what the Blacks are doing. And I hate that. Like, I hate that perspective. And so it's really important for me personally to feel like I'm having conversations that my community is familiar with, and that my community doesn't feel condescended to, you know, and like we're talking like we're at the kitchen table, like we're having a conversation that we're already comfortable having.
Now, and because I remember you saying when you were doing a presentation that the says schools provide meals for all neighborhood. Okay, so they are. Yeah,
I do know that there are some schools that have, you know, provided breakfast and lunch that students can do, like a grab and go breakfast. And lunch. I know there are a lot of schools in New York City that are doing that, and I commend obviously the incredible teachers and schools that are, you know, still making sure that communities and that students are getting meals. It is so important because a lot of students really do rely on school lunches and school breakfast. And so there are, I do certainly want to acknowledge that. But absolutely, I do think, you know, the education gap is something that we've really got to pay attention to and look out for.
Yeah. So now I done forgot the question I was going to ask because I went on to the comment. But anyway, it'll probably come to me. But oh, I remember. So I remember you saying that the Unbothered girl or the Refinery 29 girl. Is it the Unbothered girl?
The Unbothered girl. We're gonna talk about
it's very vocal to you guys about what they like, what they don't like.
Yes.
So how have they been receiving this content around and it's not necessarily COVID-19. Like, I try to move away from that because COVID-19 is a circumstantial thing, but there's something so much bigger. There's so many layers to this. So how have they been receiving that?
Yeah. You know, I mean, I think we've been really encouraged by the feedback that we've gotten. I think so much of that had to do with the fact that we asked first, right? That we were like, hey, what's important to you right now? How are you feeling? What do you need? How can we help? Yeah. And so I think, you know, what I appreciate is that I feel like our Unbothered girl feels connected to us. And she's very verbal, honey. She be up in them comments, whether it's bad, whatever.
You included.
Like, this ain't cute. We don't like this. Take this down. You know what I mean? Yeah. And listen, you know, I tell people all the time, like, I'm not in content creation to make everybody happy. Sometimes I'm going to do something that's like, you know, we're going to cover something or we're going to have a conversation that maybe people aren't really trying to have, but it's not my job to make everybody happy. It is my job to make people think and to educate and to provide resources and to entertain. And that doesn't always mean, you know, warm and fuzzy and happiness, you know, but what I do think is really important is that our girl knows that she can engage with us and that we will be responsive. You know, we have a team, an incredible team. Shout out to our social team who's up in the comments and who's responding and, you know, who's engaging. And if we feel like we've made a mistake or if we feel like, oh, okay, we didn't, you know, we need to edit a caption or we need to present something a different way, then we'll certainly do that, you know.
Yeah, and I would say you guys have been doing a good job as far as keeping us aware, keeping us in the know. The lives have been popping.
Thank you.
the lives on. And if the people who are listening, like Refinery 29 does have another entity. It's called Unbothered. And it is for the Black women, the Black ladies out here. And it is.
That's what I'm saying. The Refinery 29 girl is a different girl. Okay?
Yeah, it's a different girl.
The Unbothered girl is a different girl. Yeah, I mean, we've been trying to do it all. You know, we've been trying to do everything from like, you know, we've also opened up ourselves in our homes. You know, we're getting on IG Live more frequently. We're trying to, like, you know, whether it's me going on there making a recipe or folks having conversations, you know, I think one of the beautiful things about this time is we're getting a way more intimate look at people that we just weren't able to get before. You know, celebrities are home, and folks are home, you know, some folks, let me be clear, there are not everybody's home, and shout out to the essential workers who are and at home in order to keep us safe. But, you know, I think we're taking this opportunity to be experimental with the kind of content we're doing, and we're having a good time. It's fun, you know. And I think one of the cool things for me, from a content creation standpoint, you rarely get an opportunity to experiment, and people are going to be like, "Oh, that's cool." You know what I mean? Like, things are so polished and pretty and blah, blah. But right now, people don't have those same kinds of expectations. You know what I mean? So we're having an opportunity. We're getting an opportunity right now to, like, just experiment with our content. And it's nice, you know. We're getting to see, like, oh, y'all like that? Okay, we'll do more of that. Oh, y'all don't like that? Okay, we won't do that. You know,
and y'all do a good job of not inundating us. It's like you keep us aware, and then we laugh at the ratchet, and then we do a meditation, and then we're more aware. You know, we're now. I see now the posts are coming about Ahmad. I think I'm saying his name. It's just
I mean, that's the thing, and that is to exist as a Black person, to exist as a Black woman, is to have so many different experiences, right? And so we never want to be, and we're also not monolithic, so we never want to have one note. We always want to be, you know, we want to laugh, and we want to cry, and we want to meditate, and we want to do different things. And so our responsibility as a media outlet is to serve all of those things, you know, and is to be representative of the fact that as Black women, we have different concerns, we have different interests, and you know, as an entity, we definitely try to serve all of those.
True. Okay, so on to, I mean, this is my last question, and then we could have regular conversation. No more deep stuff. But, you know, I just want to touch base on, like, you know, the whole, like, what are the fun things that you're doing to keep yourself mentally sane? But before we go into that, since I'm in the advertising industry, I have noticed that brands are definitely, they're pushing, because they're trying to stay afloat.
Yeah.
Right. Everybody's trying to stay afloat except for, like, Lysol and Clorox at this point. So everybody else, everybody else is trying to stay afloat. So what I'm noticing is diversity is kind of getting pushed to the side now. Right. So I feel like we're going to be getting the short end of the stick when it comes to diversity, and diversity and inclusion, and any kind of practice that have to do with that. Do you agree? Is Black media going to be affected by that? Do you feel? And if so, what would be the game plan? Like, how would you be able to still tell our stories? How would you be able to get that stuff out to us?
That's a great question. Yeah, you know, listen, I think media is going to be affected in general, right? I think media is going to take a hit. Media is already a struggling industry, and this is, every industry is going to struggle in the face of the coronavirus, but, you know, media is certainly going to struggle. And I think we're going to see that a lot of outlets, you know, a lot of folks are going to get laid off. A lot of staffs are going to get slashed, cut, all of those things. You know, I always say that I bet on Black women any day of the week. And there's a lot of reasons why. Because like, Black women are a gift to society in so many ways, but there are so many reasons why I would bet on Black women. And I go back to why I decided to take this job. And it is that, you know, and I think you make a salient point in that, you know, I've heard this. I have friends who work in diversity inclusion who are concerned about their own positions and are concerned about whether or not their departments would be the first cut. You know, Black buying power being what it is, I think that brands are so interested in targeting, and I can tell you this firsthand from what I do every day, because so much of my job is associated with interfacing with brands. And there are so many brands who want to target Black audiences. The world, our country specifically, is getting browner by the day. So
Yeah.
it is not in brands' best interest to lose out on the Black buying power. It's just not smart.
Yeah.
And I say this all the time. I'm an entrepreneur. Like I've been a career entrepreneur my whole career. I've always worked at a larger, mostly white company doing the, Black thing.
Yeah.
And I can say without a shadow of a doubt that I know I've driven revenue in those companies because brands wanted to target Black audiences. I can't tell you how many sales meetings I've been in. I can't tell you how much I'm aware of the percentage of revenue. I've helped brands like Black Voices, The Undefeated, Unbothered have helped keep media brands afloat. And so it is not in brands' best interest to shutter their Black media sites. It's just not. It's not smart because, and when I say brands, I mean media brands, because product brands, because brands like whether it's the Cloroxes or the Toyotas or the Targets, they want to target Black audiences. The Black buying power, the Black dollar is strong. And I feel very confident, having a career where I can say, I know this audience, I understand this audience, I know how to engage with this audience. Why? Because that's what's going to make you money. Not only because it's a smart and it's the right thing to do to cater to this audience, but because it is financially smart, because that's what's going to make you money. I can't tell you how many of these brands are saying, oh, but how are we getting the African-American dollars? And how are we targeting this community? And if you don't have anybody at your publication that can do that, well, then you're pretty screwed. And so I feel very confident that I make my value very clear, and that who the hell else can do it? Who can do it?
Right.
Becky can't do it.
Right.
She don't know how to write about Black hair, and she doesn't know Black entertainment. But I could do Becky's job and my job, because I know I watched Friends and Living Single. You know what I'm saying? So I feel very confident.
Poor Becky.
So I'm very confident in the value I bring to the table, not only because I have the diverse perspective as a Black person. I don't not only know Black things, but I've had to know right things, but I also I can show you that I have fiscal value, because brands are coming to spend money with you. I understand this community in a way that you don't. And that's how I'm going to help make you this money. And so that, I do think, I think media in general is going to be affected, but, it is not in brands' best interest to lose out and to shutter teams that are helping drive revenue. And I truly, truly believe that Black audiences are helping drive revenue, because the Black buying power is incredibly strong. And so I think you're going to see, if people make the wrong decision and, shutter diversity and inclusion departments, or you don't give as many resources to Black brands, they're going to see that's going to hit them in the pockets. And at the end of the day, that's what a lot of folks care about. If we're being honest, folks care about the bottom line.
This is true. And I'm just wondering, because I hope that, I really do see a lot of people, putting their foot in their mouth in months to come. But I'm just wondering, is this going to be an opportunity for us to build a lot of for us, by us stuff?
I mean, absolutely. I think I was just having a conversation with somebody about what I'm excited about. And I'm so excited about the creativity that's going to come out of this moment. I think there's a lot. I mean, it's hard. This is a hard time, and there's a lot to be concerned about right now. But we have this unique opportunity right now to create and to have some quiet time to ourselves and to think things through. What's going to come out of this is incredible. The books, the movies, the brands. As Black people, we are so incredible. Like, we take hard moments and we create nothing. We create something like incredible things out of nothing. We have literally in this country had nothing, and somehow have created the entire culture. Okay, the entire culture that we like. Popular culture is Black culture. So I'm so excited.
Girl, you're preaching. I'm about to get up and start running through this house. My feet done got light. My feet.
It's real. You know. So I'm like, what we are gonna come out of this? The struggle that we're experiencing right now. We have as a community created beautiful things out of his struggle, and I'm so excited to see what we're going to create. And that's anything from, like I said, I'm a career entrepreneur. I'm not even gonna lie. I don't have the balls to be an entrepreneur. I just don't. Like I just like, I know myself, you know what I mean?
You gotta know.
So I always try to make it work from the inside out, but also shout out to the people who are going to be, you know what, I'm going to quit my job, or I'm going to take this opportunity. I got furloughed. Fine. Now it's finally time for me to start this business. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I think I'm so excited about what's going to come out of this, because and nobody deals with
this. I believe so.
Yes, it is. It absolutely is. Nobody deals with struggle better than Black folks. And we are going to come out of this. The music that's going to come out of this, the movies, I keep saying to people, you know, we have leaned on essential workers and creatives in this time.
Yeah.
We're streaming the films, we're reading the books, what's going to come out of this from a creative standpoint is about to be beautiful. And I'm so excited. I'm so excited.
Yeah, I'm excited too. And then amongst that excitement, there's people like us who are just like, you know, well, I mean, I wouldn't say us, girl, because I ain't no VP. Okay. I'm like, and also too, you know what I wanted to tell you was like, I'm like a millennial, but not really a millennial because I'm 40.
Okay,
so,
okay.
You know, that's where Analog Girl comes from. Because I'm like, I grew up analog, but then I also grew up digital. So it's like what do they call it? Exennials type of things.
Yes. Also, first of all, girl, I wouldn't have thought you were a day over like 29. So please I don't know about all that.
I'm a whole 40 girl with a whole son that is 25. Okay.
Oh my God. That's amazing.
Yes. So, you know, just watching Unbothered and all that stuff and going through that, like, we don't really have a place. Exennials, we don't. And that's what made me create Analog Girl was because, you know, the ones who are in that cusp, and it's so weird. It's such a weird thing. It's like either you're a millennial or you're Gen X. It's just, it's nothing for us. So that's real. That's real. Yes, wanted to start creating content for us. But, you know, Unbothered has just done such a great job on keeping us on just empowering us. Like, you're literally empowering people here in these comments right now, like, who might not have thought about this type of stuff. We're just depressed. We're anxious. We're looking at we're watching videos that people keep sharing nonstop of this boy getting shot. You know what I mean? So it's just like, this is very good conversation for me, and also too because I'm one of the people who have jumped on the bandwagon. Well, I've been doing a podcast for 2 years, but I haven't been consistent, and just God just laid this on my heart to just do this, and then, you know, it's just moving and grooving as it is now. So I do believe that this is something good is going to come out of this. So 100%. I definitely 100%. Agree. So we have talked about all the deep stuff and all that good stuff. So what have you been binging? Because we got about 10 minutes. And then if anybody got any questions, drop the questions now in the comments. And she already told y'all that about the freelancing. Oh, somebody asked, where could they comment? I mean, where could they email though?
Okay. So my email is my first last name. So Danielle.cadet@refinery29.com. And you can send it there. What am I binging? Oh my gosh. So I've obviously been watching Insecure. I am an Insecure junkie. I can't even lie.
Can I just say before you say that, are you enjoying it this season?
Okay, I'm struggling with this season because I'm struggling with Molly and Issa's relationship right now. Like, I'm just not I'm like, oh my God, like, it's just such a clear communication breakdown, and I hate watching stuff like this. Like, I'm like, oh my God, this is so frustrating. Like,
but I'm just like, who's like, you know, I was talking to my best friend Takia about this, and I was just like, girl, we wouldn't even operate like that. Like I would be like, okay, what's the problem? Like why are you talking to me like this? So I'm struggling.
I'm having a hard time with it.
Yeah,
I'm having a hard time with it. And I'm hoping that like it brings, I'm hoping that something better comes out of it, but I'm struggling with that for sure. I see people in here saying Black AF. Okay, so I'm
sorry.
I only got like 2 episodes into Black AF and like it's not for me. It's not my. So here's my thing is that I keep saying this about this show. I'm actually a very big fan of Curb Your Enthusiasm, right? Like I love that show. I think Curb Your Enthusiasm is freaking hysterical. And I was really much expecting Black AF to be like Curb Your Enthusiasm. I think the thing that frustrates me about that show is that I don't think he needed to associate it with identity. Like, I don't think race and identity needed to be associated. If you want to make a show about your crazy ass family that happens to be Black, cool, do that. But you don't have to call him Black AF. You know what I mean?
So and I think that's why I can't bring myself to, because if the show is called Black AF and then I see a picture of everyone that don't look Black,
right,
that threw me off.
Right. And again, like I said, Black people are not a monolith, so I don't want to say that there's only one type of Black person. But I think people have to understand, it's like a headline. When you associate, you're sending a message by using that name. And Curb Your Enthusiasm isn't called Jewish AF. But Larry David is like this crazy old Jewish man having these like crazy experiences, but he's not associating that with his identity. He's just, you know what I mean? And I think sometimes as Black people, we just need to be. We don't have to say it's Black shit. You can curse. Like, we don't have to say, I'm just doing Black shit by being Black. You know what I mean? So I just think it's just, that's kind of my issue with Black AF. So that's not really my thing. I do see somebody talking about Hollywood.
I watched the whole thing.
Okay, I haven't watched it yet, so no spoilers. But that is the thing that I'm looking forward to. I've heard some really, really good things about Hollywood, and I think like Queen Latifah is in it, and like I'm seeing some like really dope things about Hollywood.
It's really good. I wish I could talk to you about it because I do have my opinion. My opinion is I thought it was great.
Okay.
I still sometimes I have a hard time grabbing what's realistic and what's not.
Yes.
So those are the conversations I like to have with someone who's actually watched it, though. So I might have to.
I'll slide in do a part 2.
I'll slide in your DMs and ask you, girl, did you watch Hollywood yet? Because I need to.
Yes, I definitely that's one that's like high on my list to watch. I saw somebody else said Ozark. I struggled with Ozark too. My husband and I only got like 3 episodes in, but I'm not like, I don't really like dark shows. Like that's just not really my thing. But I've heard really great things. So no shade to Ozark. I just like, it's just not my like form of entertainment, but I have heard incredible things about Ozark. Like my cousin is like obsessed with Ozark. So maybe I'll give it another try, but
Have you watched Unorthodox? I've
heard that is
a good one.
Literally, my sister just told me, and it's funny because I grew up. I'm born and raised in New York. I grew up in Long Island. My family's from Brooklyn, and my sister was saying my family is from a neighborhood called Crown Heights, which is heavily Caribbean and Orthodox Jewish, and so growing up. Like
she said, "Dang, y'all hate all my
shows." So growing up, I was around Orthodox Jewish people pretty much like my whole life. So my sister was like, "That is actually really interesting to kind of grow up seeing Orthodox Jewish people and watching that show." So I definitely want to watch that.
It's really good. I enjoyed it. I just like randomly it popped up on my feed. I was like, "Let me just watch this." It was really good. It was really I knew about the oppression that was happening in that community, but it was just like, it just went from an artistic standpoint. It was really, really good.
Yeah, I'm excited to check that. I've also been watching, and I said I used to work at ESPN, but I've been watching the Michael Jordan documentary, which is incredible. It's so good. It's
all
like
gems.
My gosh,
I'm only coming to work with one suit energy now. Yeah. What are you gonna do with your 14 minutes?
It's and it just, it just takes you back to a time, it takes me back to like, I remember watching those games and like, I remember watching those Knicks and Bulls games. Like my dad is like a rabid Knicks fan. And so I remember just growing up and like, so taking it back there and going in depth, you know, that I thought the stuff about Dennis Rodman was fascinating. There's just so much about Rodman that I didn't know, you know what I mean?
And how much of an amazing person. Like, he is super talented. Anybody can go to Vegas.
Yes.
No, he straight up was like, yo, I need to give me 48 hours. He went
right.
to
and just let me do my thing.
And he came back and he blew it off the
and it's so funny because I remember as a kid, now I'm first generation American, right? So my family's from Haiti. Shout out to any Caribbean folks that are up in here. And I remember, you know, I grew up like in a pretty strict household. And I remember my dad just being so down on Rodman because he was like, he's got all these tattoos in his hair and blah, 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 and whatever. And so now coming back as an adult, and I remember growing up like thinking like, oh, Rodman's not a good person. But like coming back to like revisiting this as an adult and being like, you know what, I really just think he's really misunderstood.
He's very misunderstood.
Really appreciated that. Like
I also thought that I think a lot of it dealt with, I think it stemmed from his mom. His mom putting him out at such a young age.
Yes.
He dealt with a lot of abandonment issues.
Yeah.
So as soon as they started talking trade, he was like, what? And like, like, nah, y'all y'all want to get rid of me too? You know? So, so like bad boy. So what's happening here? Let's see. I didn't even, someone did pop a question in. How do you deal with people that are so frustrated with how Blacks are being treated and refuse to comply to safety precautions that the government has implemented? Oh, so I guess basically saying like a lot of people have given up on, I ain't wearing no mask. I don't care. It is what it is. Like they're just so frustrated with how we're being policed in the neighborhoods that they're just giving up.
That's a good question. Also, shout out. I see some Sakpa say. I see folks who are Caribbean. So shout out to them. You know, okay. So here's my thing: is I don't necessarily think that that's fair. I think there are white people that are doing the same thing.
Yeah.
So like, I think we've got to be really careful. I've watched some news programs that have made it seem like this is like only a thing happening in the Black community, and it's not. Like, you know, there are definitely white people who feel the same way. But in terms of how Black people are let me just make sure I understand the question. How Black people are being treated as far as like by police officers?
I guess that's by police officers, I would say. That the policing of the neighborhoods. Because, you know, we're now seeing a lot of the policing that's happening. Right. And then we're seeing Sean King. Because, you know, Sean King, he'll gaslight in a lot. Yeah. But I like him. But it's very gaslighting. So we're seeing a lot of, you know.
I think the way that authorities apply discipline in communities of colors is 90% of the time or often, I won't put a percentage on it, is deplorable, right? I think I've seen so many videos of these white people at their like rallies yelling in cops' faces. And it's like the reality, we know that Black people would never be able to do that. How many times have we seen videos of peaceful protests and Black folks have been abused and violated? You know what I mean? But now all of a sudden we want to go up to white folks in the park and respectfully ask them to go home. Like it's, you know, it's ridiculous. I mean, this country, we've been socialized to be threatened by Black and brown bodies since we've come to this country, you know, and it's deplorable. I mean, I think we have such a long way to go. And the idea, like policing in general, is so the way that we police Black bodies and the way that we police white folks are completely different things. And again, I think that's another conversation. We've got to make ourselves uncomfortable first before we're actually really able to have that conversation. It's uncomfortable. There's no way. I mean, again, this is from a place of privilege. White people can scream and yell and kick and do all kinds of wild. What was his name? The young man in South Carolina who did the Charleston church shooting.
I don't know his name, but
or whatever it was. It's deplorable. I mean, the way that we police is completely different, and it's because we have been socialized to be threatened by Black and brown bodies in this country since slavery, you know? And so, I mean, we're seeing cops politely ask white folks on having a picnic to go back inside. Meanwhile, we're slamming Black folks down on the ground. It's disgusting and it's problematic. And again, my hope with COVID, as horrific as this virus is that it's going to shine a light and finally make us have conversation about the inequities that have existed in our society for a long time. I'm hopeful that it'll change the way we see ourselves and the way that we deal, particularly the way that we police. The Ahmaud Arbery situation has been heartbreaking and infuriating. And I have so many thoughts and feelings about that. I did not watch the video. I
don't suggest you do.
I made a commitment to myself years ago to stop. I just never wanted to. I don't like to normalize Black pain and Black death. That's just not a thing that I'm interested in. But I'm hopeful that we make some real changes in this society, because it's disgusting that we live in a world where this is happening. It's disgusting.
Well, and I think that you're on the right path to those changes, to keeping us aware, and to helping us just maintain some level of mental health during this. So I definitely commend you, and I thank you for all the content that you are putting out there, and your team. It's not just you. I know that, it's you and your team, and Refinery 29 and Unbothered are putting out some great content. I love my people and I don't want to offend them. What do I say? How do I deal with peers that still want to operate like we ain't experiencing a pandemic? I mean, well, I ain't gonna say nothing, but
I think there's a way.
Don't come to my house.
I was gonna say, I think there's a way, and if these are your people, then you can be real with them. And listen, I'm gonna get real for a second. The reality is that folks are dying. Okay. Yeah. People have lost family members. This is not, and I know it feels invisible, but this is real as fuck. Like there's no other way. Like there's no
morgues.
Exactly. Like there's no other way for me to say that other than like people are actually out here dying, and it's not a joke. And I know we've been up in the house for a long time. I know it feels crazy. I know it's but it's not a joke. It's not a game. And I do think that it could affect friendships if people aren't respecting. I think everybody's just got to respect how everybody wants to deal with this right now. And I think we've got to be really real about that, especially as Black people. Like, again, we're the ones losing our aunties and our uncles and our grandparents. Like we are. That's happening to us. So I think at the end of the day, you just got to keep it really real. And sometimes you got to be like, you know what, you do you. That's not my ministry. Like I'm just not interested.
It's not. You're not coming over here.
It's not what I'm about.
Listen, I've told everybody, nobody in, nobody out. Like ain't nobody coming in this joint, and nobody's coming out of here. So that's not happening. Yeah. But again, and thank you. I don't see any more popping in. Everybody's just saying how much they love you and they love
you. Thank you for having me. This is so
happy. I'm so happy. This is gonna be one of the podcast episodes too. So I'll be posting that and then I'm so sorry I done inundated you with all this tagging and stuff. So when you look in them DMs, girl, it's just, it's
girl, don't apologize. Don't apologize. I love it. I'm here for it. I'm so here for it. Yes.
Thank you so much for having me.
This is a great conversation. It's such an important platform. I commend you for, just understanding that there was a need and filling that void. And I think it's fantastic. And I'm so honored to even be a part of this.
Thank you so much. And I hope to stay in contact with you. And I'll be sending you out some stuff too as well.
Yes, fantastic.
Have a great night. If you cooked anything, I didn't ask you what you cooked tonight.
Oh my gosh. So I'm making sea bass tonight. So the miso cod recipe that I'm making, I'm now putting it on sea bass. So
my gosh. Are you going to post it?
Crazy easy. I haven't posted it yet, but I will. It's very easy to do. And that's actually, cooking helps my anxiety. So that's part of the reason why I cook so much. It helps. Yes, cooking really helps center me. It just gives me a sense of accomplishment. So yeah, if definitely y'all follow me because I be up here cooking all the time.
Yes, I got her Instagram is up there, y'all. Follow. The girl be in the kitchen getting down that braised. It was like a braised short rib that turned.
Yes.
I was like, wow, okay.
Which is mostly really easy. I'm telling you, a lot of the things I do look really fancy, but I promise they're easy. They're super easy.
All right. Well, it's great talking to you. And for you guys listening, I forgot to say it, but I'm going to say it now. This whole series is sponsored by BetterHelp. And if you guys are interested in doing any kind of therapy, there's all sorts of therapists that you can go and check out. And it's 10% off your first month. And it's betterhelp.com/AntelopGirl. So don't forget to check that out, guys, too, as well. Thanks so much, Danielle.
Thank you so much, LaToya. I'm so glad to be here. This was great.
I really appreciate it. Talk soon.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.